Hello and welcome to our CACFP application readiness presentation. This course will help you understand how to fill out the CACFP application, whether you are a new applicant or a returning contracting entity. All right, so first thing that we will go over will be the important dates. This right here is listed for existing CEs. If you are a new CE and you've never operated the program, you can submit your application and there's really no deadline. The only thing is if you are going to be doing the at-risk after-school program, you have to make sure that you are within the same window that your local public school is operating. So you wouldn't be able to do an at-risk program when it's summertime and school is closed. For those that are returning, you do have to follow these deadlines. So August 15th will be the deadline for Tier 3 or dual sponsor renewal. TDA will notify which tier that you are on. So if you've been notified that you are a Tier 3 applicant, make sure that your application is submitted by August 15th. If you're a dual sponsor, meaning that you operate more than one type of program, your application will also be due on the 15th of August. Going forward, Tier 2, or if you have any significant application change, meaning that you are adding a lot of sides, you are changing your budget drastically, then you want to make sure that your application is submitted by August 30th so that TDA has enough time to review your application. The rest of you guys, which would be the most individuals out there, your application deadline is usually on the 30th of September. Make sure that your application has been submitted by that deadline, otherwise you will be considered as serious deficient. December 1st will be the deadline for all renewal that must have an approved application. So this will be September 30th is the deadline for you to submit the application. However, by December 1st, you should be an approved application. If your application is still returned and you haven't done anything and it's December 1st or past that, then that can also be a serious deficiency as well. So make sure that you guys are following these dates. This information was taken from the homepage of the TXUNPS. It's very important that you guys take a look at that information before proceeding to do your application. TDA will communicate with you guys through that homepage of TXUNPS. So anything that's happening in regards to your CACFP application, any important information will be on that homepage once you log on to TXUNPS. So please make it a habit to always go over that. These dates are usually the same and we have not seen them change. However, it's very possible going forward to a different program year that the dates might change slightly. So again, make sure you guys are looking at the home page. All right, so we're going to go over application review terms and timeline. TDA has 15 calendar days to review your application. What that means is from the time that you submit the application, they have 15 days to look over it and return it back to you, letting you know that it's either incomplete or it needs correction. If neither apply, then that's when you will get it back saying it's approved. Do not be discouraged if you are getting a return note saying that it's incomplete or it's incorrect, because that happens almost all the time. 30 calendar days is the time that TDA has to approve or deny once the application is complete. What that means is that you have provided all the documentation that's needed and TDA has begun the process of reviewing the application. Within 30 days, they want to be able to either approve or deny the application. If not, it could result to where the application is withdrawn. All right, so as far as terms go, if you see a note that your application is returned for incomplete, that means that TDA has not even started to review your application because it's incomplete. They cannot review an application that's not complete. So please be sure you understand what is all required when submitting your application so that you're not wasting a lot of time going back and forth trying to complete the application. Section 2000 of the policy handbook will be very helpful when it comes to understanding what all is needed. So be sure to review what's required before even beginning your application process. Once that is done and you complete the application, you will get a note, you may get a note that says return for correction. This is a good thing because what that means is your application is now complete and TDA is now reviewing the application for accuracy. So this is when your 30-day window will start. So as soon as you start seeing return for correction, make sure whatever correction that you are being asked for, you are completing that as soon as possible so that your application will be approved within that allowed 30-day period. Before we get into the application itself, these are some key important to understand about eligibility. There is a policy handbook on the TDA website, which is squaremails.org, and each program, whether you're doing a traditional child care center, adult care center, or at-risk after school or daycare homes, there's a handbook that will guide you on how to operate the program. Section 2000 of that will tell you the eligibility. So these are some of the things that are listed on there. One thing that I want to focus on here in relation to your application is your other statuses. For example, if you're a private nonprofit organization, the requirement is that you have a tax exemption or a 501c3 through the IRS. You have to have a DUNS number and an employee identification number. Most of these you will be already submitting during the pre-eligibility part of the application before you even start doing it on TXUNPS. But what's important here is to make sure that your other legal documentation, such as the 501c3, or even if it's a licensing through licensing the Department of Family and Protective Services, all of that has to be in good standing. At any time, if your 501c3 is revoked or if your license has expired, TDA is going to get a notification. So that means that you are no longer eligible to do the food program. Going forward with eligibility, these are some things that you also have to show on your application. What I want to focus on here will be demonstrate financial and administrative capability. This is very important, and we see a lot of application getting returned because of a misunderstanding on what the expectations are. As a contracting entity, the entity itself is looked at as your business, even though it may be nonprofit and is serving low-income children to help the community. At the end of the day, you're still running a business, and you are using taxpayers' money to provide these meals that you're being reimbursed to at the end of the month. TDA will be reviewing your application, making sure that you are able to run the program even if the reimbursements are not available. Understand that the program is a supplemental food program, keyword being supplemental. That means that you can continue feeding the kids even at any time that reimbursement is not given to you. The way you will be showing this on your application will be under the management plan, which is called VCA, which is part of the management plan. VCA stands for viability, capability, accountability. Viability is where you will show your comprehensive financial statement for your business. So you're expected to know what that document is entailing. So if they tell you to go ahead and provide 12 months of financial statement, your business, your entity should have records of all comprehensive financial statements, which is not all, but may include in your balance sheet, your income statement, your bank records, all of that shows your business account. And if you're a new CE, that doesn't mean you have to have a 12 months or 2 years or 3 years of financial records, but you at the minimum need to have some sort of financial records that's under the CE name and not your personal bank account. So that part of the application is going to be very vital, and having that understanding will save you guys a lot of time going back and forth on that section. Now that you guys have an understanding of what's required for eligibility to be part of the program, we will go over the application sequence. These steps are not exactly the same how you would see it on TXUMPS. It's slightly different, and I'll tell you the reason why we put it this way. So once you logged on to TXUMPS and you do the application, you want to start off with the contracting entity application, which is the first one that you would see on there. This section is asking you to put information about the entity itself. So what kind of organization are you? Are you, for profit, non-profit? Are you doing independent, or are you a sponsor, meaning that you have multiple sites? You will be putting information of the address of the entity, the administrative personnel, as well as other authorized users and so forth. So this is very simple, just asking you basic information. After you complete this, you will click save to make sure that your application, whatever it is that you put on your application, is there. And at any time, if there is a part that you didn't fill out, it will flag it as an error, and it will tell you that you are getting ready to save an application with errors. You can either save and come back and fix the errors, or you can fix the errors before you save. Just make sure that you're frequently saving so that you're not losing any information that you've already filled out. All right, second part of that will be the board of directors. Board of directors is a place where you put your governing body. They will ask you, if you're new CE, you will be adding those individuals under board of directors, and you have to follow up with additional documentation of their ID, copy of their driver license, and copy of utility bills to identify where they live, along with other documentation, which again can be found on section 2000 of the policy handbook. Okay, so once you complete step 1 and step 2, on TXUMPS, right under board of directors, what you would normally see will be the budget. However, you want to wait and not do the budget until the site application is complete. So you would skip that and scroll down on TXUMPS until you get to the site application. If you are new, you will see a little link that says add site. If you already have a site application on there, you should see your site name with the site information right there. You can click modify if you need to make changes or update the site application that's already on TXUMPS. If you new and you don't have a site application, you can add a site, click that link, add a site, and continue filling out that form. That form is going to be asking you all the information about the feeding site. So this is where you will be doing what kind of sites that you're going to be doing, a type of meals that you're going to be serving, what time the meal starts and finish, if you're going to be using vended meals, or you identify if you're going to be doing self-prep. You also would identify the number of participants that you're expecting to have. So that's the reason why we want you to do the site application first, because without knowing how many kids and the number of meals that you're going to be providing, you will not be able to do the budget. So once you thoroughly complete the site application, you will click save at the bottom and then go back to doing step 4, which would be the budget. The budget is very important because this is where you will go ahead and put the number of kids that you have and the number of days that you'll be operating for that year, so that you have the total amount of reimbursement that you're requesting. Based on that amount is when you will go ahead and fill out the rest of the budget section, and letting CDA know your cost breakdown on how you're going to be using that reimbursement money. Keep in mind that the budget is done on an annual basis, so everything that you do is for the whole program year, which starts October 1st and ends September 30th. Step 5 will be the management plan. If you are a returning CE, you do not have to complete the management plan. You just leave it the way it is. TDA is still fixing some bugs on TXUMPS, and at this point you are okay to renew your application without having to do anything on the management plan. However, if you're not an existing CA, you're doing the application for the first time, you do need to complete the management plan. Your management plan and your compensation policies are all incorporated into that one form. This is where you will put a very detailed information and showing TDA exactly how you're going to be doing your process and procedure. I will go in further details on the next few slides to explain what those details are. Step 6 will be your checklist summary. This was the section that you go on to add any additional documents. So there will be documents that you have to upload, where you can find those documents under the download forms. All the forms are listed on there for you guys. Or if you have any additional documents, for example, let's say you have your leasing agreement that you already put on your budget, you can upload that. Any information with your site application, like your licensing information, this is where you go to upload that documents. On the checklist summary itself, it would already have a list of things for you to upload, so you can click on there and say, okay, this item is already uploaded. For those that are returning, you just click the box that says application is already uploaded, or documents is already with TDA. There's a section on the box that you can click there. You don't have to re-upload the same documents over and over again if you are a returning CE. If you are new, whatever that's listed on that list of checklist items, you need to click each one of them and upload the documents. Step 7 will be the annual audit screen. This is one of the common things that we see application being returned for, only because it's kind of hard to see where it is. It's not located around the same sections where you see all these sections of step 1 through step 6. It's on a different section of TXUMPS on the very top left under application packet. When you click on that is when you will see the audit screen, which is the second from last. It's easy to oversee, but in the recent years, TDA will put a notification on TXUMPS that says you have not filled out the annual audit screen. So it kind of flags it for you, which is a great reminder for those who forget to fill that part out. That particular section is basically asking you guys to submit, to disclose the amount of federal funds that you're getting that's outside of TDA's fund. So all you need to do is put in your organization information. If you receive any other federal government funds, you put that on there, you save it. Whether you're a new CE or a returning CE, this section has to be done once a year. So this is what the download form looks like. As again, if you go to the top left and click on application packet, you will see a section where it says download forms. The majority of all your forms that you would need for the application will be listed on here. If you're new CE, right here on the right side where it says new contracting entity and it has a Y or an N, anytime that has the Y, that means yes, you need to download that form, fill it out, and submit under that checklist summary. It's very important that any documents that you submit has to be in a PDF format, otherwise you'll have some trouble uploading. All right, continuing with budget, the section is divided in two parts. One is operational cost, the other one is administration cost. Keep in mind when you're doing the operation cost, the key thing to remember is food. So anything that has to do directly with the food, this is where you will be putting it under the budget. So for example, if you have under your food and all vendor self-prep meals, this is where your cost for food will go. Facility and space, that would be where the food is prepared. So your kitchen space would be there. Supplies and equipment, that can be your kitchen equipment, your plates, napkins, forks, spoons, and all that. Purchase services would be services. For example, you have a cleaner that comes and do a third kitchen cleaning services once every 3 months, or you have a dietitian that may be going over your menus. That could be under purchase services or contracting organization costs if you're contracting them to do that job. You can put it on either one that would make more sense off of. Media costs will be a cost that you're using to advertise your food program, for example, your meals, your menu, what you'll be serving, and so forth. The unaffiliated facility cost, that's for sponsoring organization. If you have sites that you're not affiliated with and there's a kitchen space that you're reimbursing them for, this is where you will put it. With the administration cost, very similar to what you would put for operational, but this time you're only doing it for the actual administrative or office work. So your facility and space will be your office space that you're doing the admin job. Your supplies and equipment would be what you'll be using in your office. For example, printing costs, papers, pens, and all of that. Purchase services or contracting services could be costs such as if you have a bookkeeper and anybody that you're paying their services and they're not your employee. Financial costs can be if you have, let's say, a software that you are using to run the program and you have to pay a subscription fee or monthly fee for it, that's what you put your financial cost on there. After you complete the budget, the next step will be the management plan. Again, like mentioned before, if you are a returning CE, you do not have to complete this at this time. If you're a new CE, you do have to complete that. So this is an information that came straight from that homepage of TX2NPS. What's new this program year going for program year 1920, the TDA has stated that the application has management plan and compensation policy are incorporated into one form. New CEs would have to, who have not been approved, would have to complete this, and it's required by TDA. All the information on that management plan is complete in its entirety. When you're doing a management plan, one thing that you have to remember is you are putting information for TDA to review without being physically there. So they're looking at your management plan and reading it. So you want to give them a precise yet detailed information so that they can understand what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it. So putting process and procedure in place from the start of the application is very important. This section that you're looking at it's a section that came straight from whenever you do your review and you have to have a corrective action document, which is also known as CAD. The reason why I like to present on this, particularly with the management plan, is if you start putting your management plan together with these process and procedure steps, it'll be easier to carry it on to operating the program, and you will be already ready when you are having an administrative review. So for anything that you put on your management plan, make sure you provide a description of, what it is that individual is going to be doing. For example, the step-by-step process and procedure. If we're talking about completing meal counts and attendance, how is that going to be done? Who's going to be responsible to do it? When is it going to be done? How often? If there's an oversight measure, who's going to be responsible to look over that? So kind of following the steps and putting your management plan together would be helpful for TDA to see clearly how you're going to be operating the program. And like I said, it would also be easy for you because this will be a living document, whether you have new employees or you're training your current employees. You can always refer back to your management plan and letting them know this is how we're going to be doing the food program. Some helpful common errors that we've seen in the past are these. So one thing is unmatched legal name of entity. This is very important. So whenever you have your certification of formation, when you first established your organization, whatever name that you gave it on that certification of formation will be the name that you need to use throughout the application process. For example, if we have Region 10 Child Care Center and I put Region 10 instead of TEN, instead of spelling out 10, I need to make sure that that is how I have it. I cannot go back to a different form and change it to the number 10 is spelled out or is actually in the digital form 10. Or if there's a comma somewhere, or children's daycare or childcare daycare, all that is very important. So anything, even as a tiny error as a comma or period, common thing like incorporated, I put EINC on one of the forms and I spelled out incorporated in another form. That makes a huge difference. So at any time you have your entity name, make sure that it matches exactly how you have it on your certification of formation. Next thing is the CACFP taxable income protocol. This is a new policy that was applied a few years ago. So when you're filling out your budget and your management plan, there are some steps that you have to follow. So for example, if you have a cook, in the past you would have been able to put cook, if that's their title, and describe what it is that they do. But this time there are about 5 different categories that you have to follow. So if they're cooks, they're considered a staff because they're not administration or they're not doing any executive level of duties. So you put them under staff dash cook. So with the different categories that there's based on their job duties, you have to make sure that you're titling them correctly on your budget. If that's not done, if you just leave it as cook or office manager, the application will be returned asking you to follow the categories listed on the CACFP taxable income protocol. If you're not familiar with that form, you can go to TDA's website, which is squaremills.org, and search for taxable income protocol to retain that information. The third thing will be the annual audit screen. I will show you guys a screenshot of what that looks like later on, but this is very common because the annual audit screen is not together with the other application, so it's easy to forget to fill that out. I know in recent years there's a red font that comes up on the application letting you know that you have not completed the annual audit screen, which is very helpful. So just in case you forget to do that, you have that reminder that's telling you to go do it. It's very simple to do. You just have to open up that screen and fill out information such as income that you receive, any funds that you receive from other federal agencies that's not part of TDA. All right, and the other part is the VCA. I've already talked to you guys about what that stands for, which is viability, capability, accountability. On that part, the V part, the viability, is to show that you are financially capable to run the program, even if the funds are not available. A lot of people have a misunderstanding because they will get into the program for different reasons of either making money, or the program is going to be there without them not having to have any money to support it. But that's really in reality not how it works. The program itself is called the supplemental food program. Therefore, you have to be financially viable. At this point of the application review, TDA is going to be asking for a comprehensive financial statement. When you are filling out the application, your entity is your business. So you're expected to understand what that entails. What is a financial statement? So they're going to ask you to have documents of your income statement, your balance sheet, bank records, a lot of other things that would show the financial part of your organization. If you're not able to produce that, or if you don't have a bookkeeper or an accountant to do that, it's going to be hard to prove that you're financially viable. So we see a lot of application getting returned because of this section right here. So I would highly emphasize to understand what that entails. Section 2000 of the policy handbook, as well as section 4000 of the policy handbook, will go into further details of what that is. So if you come into the program without a year worth of financial documentation because you're a new entity, that doesn't mean that you can't be on the program. However, you still have to provide all these documents. It's not an exemption for anyone to not provide it. TDA does expect that you guys see your program as a business, so you have to be able to run the financial aspect of it as well. All right, lastly is the SPWA of the common errors. SPWA stands for specific prior written approval. Based on some of the budget that you put, it may require specific prior written approval. There's a list of things that you can see on TXUMPS under the budget of which items are required for SPWA. You can also find that information on that 796-2 revision 4 policy handbook. Basically what this means is that you cannot add anything that requires SPWA on the budget. You have to get the okay from TDA first by submitting SPWA before you add it to your budget. A simple example that I can give you guys will be a cell phone bill. So if you are a sponsoring organization and you have monitors to go out and do a monitoring review and you want to cover their cell phone costs while they're traveling, or have a business cell phone for yourself, that is an allowable cost. However, it requires specific prior written approval. So there's a section for that for you to fill out and requesting. You give them your reasoning, how much it's going to be costing. You submit that, and once that is approved, then you can go back to your budget under administrative cost and add that cell phone bill or cell phone cost on there. If you have any items that requires SPWA on your budget, it would automatically flag it or give you a warning telling you that you may have items that require SPWA. So before you submit your application, just verify that if it does require SPWA, that you remove it from your budget and add it to the SPWA section first. Sometimes it may give you a warning just to give you a heads up saying that you may have an item, but if it's a warning and you already verified that it doesn't require SPWA, then that's okay. You can move forward with completing your budget. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is go over a screenshot of the different part of the application under TXUMPS so you guys can have a visual understanding of what was discussed. Okay, now that we went over all the do's and don'ts when filling out the application, I want to take you guys over to a screenshot so you can have a visual understanding of what you are going to be doing when renewing or filling out a new application. As mentioned before, the first part that you want to do will be the contracting entity application. So here's a screenshot of what that looks like. This part, you are basically entering information about the entity itself. So you will put what type of organization you are, whether you are independent or a sponsor. You will put the address of the entity and contact information. So the admin, the person that's going to be doing the claim, and so forth. Keep in mind that anybody that's going to be giving us the ESC a call, or if they are even calling TDA, that individual has to be added into the application as an authorized user. Also, each person that's on this application needs to have their own login and password. You are not allowed to be sharing username and password with anybody else. Going forward, all you need to do is answer these basic questions, yes or no, and scroll down all the way, read all the information. At the bottom, you have to acknowledge that everything that you have entered is correct, and you click save. It's very important to frequently save your documents, because if anything happens and you didn't click that save button, all the information that you've entered is not going to be saved. So make it a habit to always click that save button. If you did not fill out all the forms and you click save, the application is going to pop up saying that your application is saved with errors, and you will see a bunch of notes up top here with yellow background and red, letting you know what the errors are. You can just read that and fix the parts that was not answered. So that will take care of your first part of the application, which would be the contracting entity application. The second part of the application that you want to do will be right below the contracting entity application, and is for the board of directors, which is the governing body. If you're not sure what all is required for that, you can always go back and refer to the policy handbook, and under section 2000 you can see what TDA is looking for when you are filling out the board of directors information. So you would need 2 to 3 individuals on here, and the most common thing that they're going to be asking for this particular part will be the person's identification, so a copy of their driver's license with their address, as well as a utility bill that verifies that they are residing in that address that you have. There's also other things like minutes that you have to take during your governing body meetings and so forth. All of that needs to be uploaded. If you're a new person to the program, if you're a returning CE, you do not have to include anything unless you have a new member on board. So this is pretty simple. Section 2000 can give you further information on other documents that needs to be submitted, but besides that, you just put your board of directors information, address, and as always, click save at the bottom. After you've completed the board of directors section, the very next one will be the budget. However, you don't want to complete the budget before you do your site application. And that's because on the site application, you'll be able to add the number of sites that you have, how many meals that you're going to be serving, as well as your participants. So once you are onto that home page of the contracting entity application, if you look all the way down, you will see where it says site application. If you're a new CE, you will click that site application link, and it will give you the prompt to add a site. If you already have sites and you want to add more, you can also click that add site button. If you're not adding a site and you're just renewing your application, the only thing that you have to do will be to modify the existing site application, go through all the questions, make sure everything is current, and save. So in general, this is what the site application looks like. You have your questions regarding the site type, tax status, you put licensing, all the information that applies to that specific site, the address and so forth, and when you scroll down, you will be able to put the months that you'll be operating, hours, the meal types, the time that meals will start, and the time that the meals will be finished. So make sure you thoroughly look through this and fill it out. Another important part is also determining the food service. Are you going to be preparing your meals on site? Are you going to be catering it? Is it going to be are you going to be using a food vendor? So all this makes a big difference on your application. So make sure all of that is done. Here you'll be able to put your participants. So if you're a traditional childcare center, you would have to go by the income eligibility and determine how many individuals will be in the free category, how many be reduced paid, and you add up the total on here. Once you have this total number, this is going to help you out with your budget detail. So this is why we recommend that CEs will fill out site application prior to doing the budget. And after you finish all of that, always make sure that you save before you close out. After completing your site application, you will come back to the contracting entity budget detail worksheet and start on the budget side of it. The first thing you want to do is click on this section where it says anticipated annual CACFP reimbursement. Once you click on that, it will take you to a screen like this. This is the section where you will put the number of participants that you're expecting to have for that program year and the number of days that you will be operating. As mentioned before, one of the reasons why we want you guys to do the sign application first is so that you have the total number of kids that you will be adding on your budget. This is all inclusive, so if you have multiple sites, you will get the total numbers for all your sites to put under ADP. If you're operating based on income eligibility, then you will determine how many participants will be in the free, how many will be in the reduced and paid category. Once you complete that for the type of meals that you serve, then you go ahead to the next section and do the days that the number of days that you will be operating. So for example, our program year starts from October 1st through September 30th. If you only do it Monday through Friday and you're closed on holidays, you will count the days that you actually are in service. If you are doing at-risk after school, your days will be from October 1st until whenever school closes, which is around May. Once you complete that section of ADP and number of days, the TXUMPS system will calculate that by multiplying it with the rate for the meal. So there's a list of rates right here for you to see based on the number of days and the number of participants you have. You will have a total number of requested amount that you will have. Once you have that done, you click save and you go back to your budget detail worksheet. Then when you get to the side, you will see that number that you will be receiving for the program year listed under requested amount. If you are a returning CE, that section the approved amount will be the last budget that you had, and this is the approved amount that you're going to be working with. When you're renewing, if you're not making any changes, your number of participants are staying the same, your budget is staying the same. It's a simple review that you have to do on your budget. You just make sure everything is listed correctly, make sure your staff, click on the staff section, make sure that the individual you have listed still are under your employment, and you just scroll down and save. That would be all that you have to do if you're not making changes. If you are making changes as a returning CE, you would do the same thing that I just described. If you're adding participants, you will click on the anticipated annual reimbursement, add whatever additional numbers for the ADP, and modify the rest of the section accordingly. Once you get this part done for the anticipated annual, then you move forward with the cost for labor. And as mentioned before, budget is divided in two sections, one being operating, the other part being administrative. Another thing to keep in mind when doing this is what I mentioned about the income protocol guideline. There are different categories that you're supposed to be using in order to fill out the staff. So if you have a cook, which will go under operating costs for labor, you click on the staff section. Under title, you put on staff dash cook. You can just put cook on there, so that protocol category has to be followed accordingly. The same rules will be applied for your executive staffs or your management staff under administrative. Going forward to operating costs, you have your sections for food, facility, and space, equipment, and so forth. This is where your cost breakdown comes into a big play, meaning that you don't want to just click on C1 or C2 and put big lumps of money and just leave it at that. TDA would need to understand how you came up with that figure. So for example, for food, if you're self-prepping and you put, $40,000 on food costs, they want to know how did you calculate $40,000. So you can, as a returning CE, you can go back to your previous year cost and say, my fruits and vegetable costed this much a month times 12. My meat alternate costed me this much times 12 to get that annual number. And based on those calculations, that's how I came up with $40,000. So you would give them a price breakdown. Or if you're vending your meal, or your food catering company, using a food catering company, and you can say they're charging me $2 and some cents per meal. So you will have the cost times the number of participants you have times 12 to give you that total number. The more details you are with the price breakdown, the easier for TDA to understand how you came up with the money. So that cuts off a lot of going back and forth with this part of the application. Same thing applies for everything, whether if it's space and facility, whether if it's equipment that you're requesting, all of that, be sure to break it down as much detail as possible. At the bottom of your budget, there is the summary of projected income and expense. Before you save and submit your application, be sure to look at this number because it's very important. You want to make sure that your E1, which is the total cost of profit, is a total number of everything that you filled up on the top that shows how much it's costing you to do the program. Is not less than what you're going to be asking as a reimbursement. So if your E2, your total reimbursement, is more than what's actually costing you to do the program, that means you're profiting. So for example, if you have requested, based on the participants and the days of operation right here, if you're requesting $100,000, but when you did your price breakdown, it ended up being around, let's say, 80,000. That means that you're asking for more money than what it's costing you. So you would need to fill in that gap to make sure that your cost, you're putting more, for example, and you will increase your food cost or other costs there so that your E1 and your E2 are equal. If it's the other way around, where your cost is, let's say, 120,000 and your reimbursement is 100, that $20,000 extra, it's not that you're profiting from it, it's just that you need to make sure that you have other income source to fill in that extra money that your reimbursement is not covering. So you have the option to fill out E3 to declare where that extra money will come from if your E1 is more than your E2. One thing to remember is whatever amount that you put on there now becomes the CACFP money. What that means is that, let's say you are using your child care money to fill in the gap between the reimbursement and the cost, that $20,000 is now CACFP money. And during your review, they're going to want to know what you did with the money, how the money happened. You can't say, I don't have it, or you can't say, I don't have receipts to show that the 20,000 is there, because once the budget is approved and you put some figure here, they're going to expect that you have all the financial documentation to show that that $20,000 is indeed allocated for the food program. If you don't put anything on E3, then that's fine. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to make sure that your cost is fully covered. So point on this, a final takeaway would be, make sure that your cost is not less than what you're getting as a reimbursement, because at that point it's showing that you're profiting from the reimbursement, and this is a nonprofit or program. The last part of the budget will be Section H. This is where you will select if you have any rental agreement for the lease for facility and space, if you have any less than arm's length transaction, and if there's anything that requires specific prior written approval. I mentioned under the common error slide about what SPWA is. If there are any items that are listed on here that you put on the budget prior to requesting an approval, then you have to remove it. You have to make sure that these items listed under section H have been approved under the SPWA section of the application before putting it on there. The system will give you a warning if it detects anything that seems like a SPWA that's on there. Sometimes it may not be SPWA, but just double check before you submit your budget. And as always with any of the application, you click that certification box, certifying that the information you put above is correct. And please be sure to save, even if you're not done with it, frequently save so that you're not losing anything that you did. The last screenshot that I have to share with you all would be the annual audit screen. As mentioned previously, this will be some of the common return items that we see CEs not completing the annual audit screen. It's very easy to miss because it's not in the same section where the other application packet is located. So if you go onto TXUNPS before you even go through the application packet itself, you will see it right there, right below download forms where it says annual audits. You click that, you fill in your entity information along with the amounts that you receive as a fund that's outside of TDA. You save and you submit. Whether you're a returning CE or new CE, this section has to be done once a year. This concludes the presentation on CACFP application readiness. I hope I've given you all enough clues and tips on making the application process a little bit easier. If you have any question in regards to the application or operating the CACFP program, please feel free to give us a call. I've linked our contact information right here on the slide for you all. We are here to help you, to provide technical assistance with making sure that you have a successful CACFP program. We thank you for attending this training, and we're just a phone call away if you need us. Thank you again and have a good day.